Using electrical tape, we're going to tape off the clear areas in the canopy. Just slice about a 1/8 inch strip. Maybe a 3/16. And follow the panel line. Once we have it all taped off, we're going to paint flat black on all our panel line area. Okay, time to cut out our ailerons. We'll mark our lines. And we'll use a sharp razor and slice along the line. Using a hacksaw blade, we'll cut the rest off. There's our aileron. Those of you who have nice radios, it would be a flapperon. Using your template, draw lines on your aileron, draw a center line. And we'll sand that all off. Don't sand your center line off though. Just a little sanding. Using the 60 grit sand block. Oh, we brought it right into shape. Look at that. Okay, we have a center line drawn on our wing, and we drew out for 3 easy hinges. Go ahead and slice using the X-Acto knife in the aileron and in the wing. Epoxy the wing side in using 5-minute epoxy, and be sure to wipe that all off and let it dry. Time to put our wing to our fuse. Measure up. Our leading edge root and our trailing edge tip should be the same distance. We'll use an X-Acto blade to hold the wing on. We'll use tape to hold it in place. We'll do our left and our right wing at the same time. Now we're going to smear a little 30-minute epoxy on the wing. And we'll fit the wing in place. The aileron torque rod is your lineup for the back. Okay, we'll measure our leading edge. Looking good. Our trailing edge, the same. Okay, it's dried. The 30-minute epoxy is dried. Now we're using some carbon strips and 5-minute epoxy. And we're going to lock in the wing and the fuselage. We'll tape down that carbon fiber. And let's glue on our leading edge strake to the fuselage and wing. Right, using either 5-minute epoxy or 30-minute epoxy mixed with some micro balloons or baby powder, let's fill in that crack area between the wing and the fuselage. Flip the plane over and do the bottom. Using a spreader, just wipe it all smooth. Alright, we're going to melt our hole for our aileron, torque rod, make our slices for our hinges. We may have to widen the hinges on the ailerons in order for that to fit real nice. And check it with a ruler. Once you like it, dab some epoxy in the hinge slot of the aileron and put some on the hinges themselves attached to the wing, and of course the torque rod. And we'll drop some epoxy down in the aileron, and we'll attach our aileron to our wing. And just kind of slide it on, and then we'll tape it in place. We're using 5-minute epoxy again. We're going to put some carbon strips and lock the wing to the bottom of the fuselage. And we'll tape in all that carbon also. Flip it over, and we'll block up the wing tips and let it dry. Alright, cut your glass away from your horizontal where the tube is to go. Leave the carbon intact. Alright, we'll sand up our elevator rod, and we're going to grease right next to the bearing there. We don't want any epoxy going inside that. And just using 5-minute epoxy. Put a little epoxy inside the elevator. Just slip it right on. Push it in tight. You want a nice tight fit here. And measure up your trailing edges, top and the bottom, the root and the tip, and they must be equal on both sides. Alright, using your exhaust, we'll cut out the center portion. And we're just marking where our tips are for the markers on the 1/8 ply that you're going to put in there. This is what your engine's going to attach to. We're using the YS45. In most of the scenes it was done with that exhaust, and the takeoff loop was done with that pipe. Okay, draw your line from corner to corner. This will give you a center line. You can use a punch to press in so to guide your drill in straight, and drill it out the size of your crankshaft. Put your engine in. Probably have to cut away some foam if you're using the YS. Okay, the top. Let's draw where the engine head would come out. And we'll just cut this big section off. We're going to save this section because we'll use it later. Just use an X-Acto knife and cut it as nicely as you can. Okay, we put some paper towels in the carburetor and in the exhaust of the engine so we don't get any foam or anything in there. And we're fitting our engine to the exhaust cone. Carve away any foam so that engine sits real nice against the 1/8 ply. Looking good. Got to get a little bit for the pump here. And it fits nice. So we'll put our washer and our nut on and tighten it down. Using our template as a guide, this is designed for the YS, but any engine can be used. Draw it out and And using some adhesive, apply it to your 3/16 aircraft plywood and cut it out and drill it. Using your blind nuts, let's rip off the paper and attach our engine. Fit that back into our cone. Check out the fit. Looks good, so we'll put our nut on. Tighten it up, and everything looks good. Alright, we'll take it off and add some 5-minute epoxy. This epoxy will glue right to those carbon fiber strips, and it's going to be tough. And we'll attach our nut. Now this is going to mount up our engine perfectly. It'll be centered, and it'll give the right amount of distance between the prop and the exhaust. Add a little epoxy on the inside and kind of just smear it off with your finger. Okay, once the engine's inside, depending on what kind of exhaust you're going to use, mark where your exhaust is going to exit. A YS45 with a rear exhaust would be perfect for this application. You just run the exhaust right on the inside. But just about any type of exhaust can be used. We're using a tune pipe, and we're going to put it right along the side. Or we can use this type of exhaust. Tune pipe does add about 15-20% more power. The rear exhaust would go right back in there. Mark where your exhaust is going to fit to your fuselage. And we'll tear off our wood initial mount and remove our engine. We're going to cut all that foam out. Just using a hacksaw blade, and we'll file that all clean. Using a drill with a drum, sanding drum works real nice. This is our aerodynamic cone for the back. Our test revealed that this works very nice. And just epoxied it in place. Looks pretty slick. All smoothed out. Alright, time to epoxy the exhaust to the fuselage. Put plenty of epoxy on both sides and on our wood mounts. And fit that right in. Line it up with our marks and let it dry.